Hello, and welcome to another episode of From Stigma to Strength, keeping you and your mind well. My name is Nancy Reardon, and today I am joined by a special co-host. We don't know who she is, but she'll introduce herself.
My name is Michelle Houle, and I'm the Community Services Manager here at MCS.
Right, but you also do a lot with the schools.
I do a lot of things with the schools, and I kind of want to know what you guys want your local access to help you with.
So today we have, combining in with all the other shows that we've done on mental health awareness, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, I wanted to approach a couple of kids from the high school and have them give us feedback on what they go through in high school, stress, grief, anxiety, things like that. And we're not going to put you on the spot, but I am right now because I have you introduce yourself. So why don't you go first, and your name and what grade you're in.
I'm Milo Isaacs, and I'm a junior at Methuen High School.
My name is Jimmy and Milo. I'm also a junior at Methuen High School.
And I thank you guys very much for joining us.
Of course. And
I kind of approached them at the Methuen Senior Center during their adopted grandparent program. How long have you been with that program at the Senior Center?
We've both been it since our freshman year.
Since your freshman year.
But freshman year was like a COVID year, so we didn't actually get to go to the Senior Center that year.
Yeah,
but we were trying to do some activities to stay involved with it.
But I mean, they really enjoy it. It helps them with their, activities and isolation and getting them out there. And there's about 30 of you that go there.
Yeah,
and,
something like
not all together,
like
but
that,
yeah. I mean, is that an extracurricular thing for your schoolwork or anything, or is it just something you do?
Just something we do.
Yeah, it's something that Mr. Billerstreet sets up, and they've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah, it's been there 30 years, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's getting up there.
Yeah, a long time. Wish they had that when I was in school. But so the first question I want to ask you guys: what is your number one thing in school that you stress about? We've talked about this, before the show, but we'll start with you.
For me, it's definitely, like homework, school that I have to do after work, whether that's stuff I have to complete from classwork or stuff that's assigned for homework. But a lot of that, like sometimes I'll have like a due date later on, like, it'd be like, oh, it's due on Thursday when it's Monday or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of my problem is like, sometimes I'll procrastinate, or I'll say I have enough time for that, but then things build up and then I get really stressed about that. So I think that's kind of my number one thing where, it's a lot of stuff building up, and then partly my fault for not keeping up on things as I should.
You don't beat yourself up for doing
No,
that.
I try not to.
Yeah, but you do a little.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we all do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, I'm right in your boat. I'm the procrastinator from way back.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, so it's like,
bad.
It's something that it's almost like as humans we can't really help but beat ourselves up for it, even though we know we shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly.
So I kind of get stressed out about it, and I try to speed things up and get it done. Yeah. So that's where my main stress comes from.
And Jimmy, what about you?
I have that same problem. I procrastinate probably more than I should. I always will think, oh, future Jimmy will get it done, so I don't have to worry about it right now.
I like that.
I'm going to use that. Future Nancy will do that.
Because I know I will get it done, so sometimes I'll put it off a little longer than I should.
Right. So what do you do to unstress yourself other than get the job done, get the homework done? How do you feel like after? You're like, big weight, but then you get more homework and you do it all over again?
Yeah, pretty much.
I hate to throw that on you, but I know that's what happens.
A lot of times, I'll try to it sounds counterproductive, but sometimes I'll allot time where I don't do that work, when I have that piled up, because it's counterintuitive because I'm spending less time doing that work, but sometimes you need that moment to decompress.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I'm especially stressed out, I'll end up procrastinating more, because then, I don't want to do this and stuff like that. So sometimes forcing myself to take a break, watch an episode of a TV show or something like that, just to decompress, and then I can jump back in and get better on track and more productive.
So you take yourself away from the problem.
Yeah,
I used to do that at work.
Yeah.
If there was something hard, I would set it aside, go do whatever, and then come back, and I'd be that stress kind of left. And
exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
Same with you.
Yeah, just like a little snack break or a little outlet, just to do something more creative or more fun, drawing, listening to music, video games, just a little break in between big sums of schoolwork can make it feel easier, I think.
Yeah. Do you now, when my kids came home with a lot of homework, I used to tell them, do the easiest one first, get that out of the way so you have more time to work on the big problem that you have in your homework packet or whatever. Do you do that? Do the easiest one first that you know you can breeze through?
I feel like I almost do the opposite. You know, I like, because because a lot of times that bigger stuff is going to be the form of like projects and whatnot, which are worth more of like a grade or
points,
whatnot.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
and so I
yeah.
want to make sure that I get those in and have those of good quality, while like smaller homework assignments that I know I can get done pretty quickly and easily, you know, I try not to worry about those ones too much because I know they're not as important.
Yeah,
and
you can
they
get
don't-
them done in a breeze.
Yeah.
Are you like that as well?
I kind of like his way of thinking as well.
Bounce off
Doing
it.
the harder thing first, like before you're drained out,
Yeah.
can like make that easier to do, and then you
makes sense.
end with the easy
That makes
stuff
sense.
that
I
you
have
can
to-
do no
Yeah.
problem.
I'm on their side.
Yeah.
I would rather do the harder thing first and get it over with.
Yeah, I always
Yeah.
do the
And
easiest thing for
I
us. Yeah.
generally used homeroom to finish a lot of homework, so.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Do you have when I was in school, like 5 years ago, we had study hall. Do you remember study hall?
Yeah, we
Did you
have study hall.
They
you-
have something like that. They have AP enhancement, where if you take at least one AP class, you can take AP enhancement, and when that's your first block, and you can go there, do homework, catch up on any work you have for any classes.
Yeah, it's similar. You had mentioned that you just lost your grandmother.
My great-grandmother.
104, your great grandmother. God love her.
Yeah,
So
it's-
you were close to her.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd go to see her all the time.
Yeah.
Because she would, for the most part, live by herself. You know, she'd have people come in, but she wasn't like at like a senior facility. She like lived in her own little apartment. Basically, people would come in and check on her.
Yeah.
We did a story about her on Methuen now
Yeah.
for her 100th birthday.
I think I
And I
remember.
think that was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about her and how you deal with her loss. What do you do?
Well, I mean, first of all, she was like incredible. I mean, she would always try to make all of us laugh. The great grandchildren, whenever we'd go over there, she'd always try to get us laughing by
Yeah.
saying something that she probably shouldn't say anymore. You know, she'd say something it's a little bit more out there, but you know, she would always
Off-key,
do
off
it.
color.
Yeah, she would always do it to get us to laugh, which we always did. We'd always go to like Piero's or Tripoli's, bring her a pastry that we know she'd like, and but yeah, we always remember like she would always do like the same type of thing. Whenever we go over there, she'd always make sure that like me and my sister, we'd always like take she'd always say, oh, grab like a $5 bill from my little wallet, because she'd always want us to take money so we could use it for something.
Walking around's money.
Yeah, she'd always want us to have something. But yeah, it was it's
That's
nice.
so cool.
Yeah.
You have some great memories. Well,
Yeah, absolutely.
17 years of memories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just glad that all of the great-grandchildren, there's 11 of us up here where we're close, that we're able to see her almost like every week probably. We're all old enough now to remember her. I think the youngest of all the great-grandchildren is my younger cousin, who's 11, I think now. So, I mean, she's at the age where she could still remember her. I mean, at 11,
yeah,
you
of
still.
course. Yeah.
So we all have good memories of her. We got to see her on Christmas doing well before, like only like a week before she passed.
Yeah.
And she would
January
look
1st, right? This
January
year?
1st, yeah, this year.
Yeah.
New Year's Eve.
Do you talk to your cousins about her at all?
Sometimes I think it's hard sometimes to bring it up, to talk about her. But I mean, she gets brought up sometimes. I'm sure it'll be an emotional day for everyone because it's her would be her birthday coming up, her 105th this Friday, I believe. But I think a way I've been able to handle some of that grief is through family. I mean, we've all been good at supporting each other because it's been tough, but like the funeral, or the wake rather, was really difficult, like the open casket.
Yeah.
That was brutal for me. It was tough for me to like go up and see her in the casket, for that to be the last time I saw her. That was tough, but I was able to have my older sister. I was able to embrace like
Lean
during
on her
that
for
time.
support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Was that your first wake family?
Yeah, I think
passing?
that's why it was so difficult. I mean, obviously I've had families who's passed, but no one that's been like close that I
Yeah.
would see like every other week or so. It's almost like it's in the back of my mind, like, oh, I'll see her soon. Like I'll see her this next month or
Yeah.
something. So it's always like, oh, I'll see her soon, because
Yeah.
I was so used to seeing her every so often.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Pictures, thank God you for
Yeah,
pictures and stuff
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
memories like that. I just lost my question. What was her motto?
Oh yeah. She was Italian, so, and I'm Italian too,
There you
obviously.
go.
But we'd always talk about. She always liked to drink red wine, which she always had
why she lived
her
to
quote.
104.
Yeah, that's what she said that gave her that long life was drinking red wine every night. She would always say, laugh every day with a glass of red wine because she loved to laugh and she loved, she liked to have her glass of red wine almost every night.
She sounds like a cool lady.
Oh, she was really fun, yeah.
So do you talk to your grandmother, her daughter, about her?
It's been
I'm
brought
sure
up.
she's heartbroken.
I'm sure, yeah. It's obviously probably more tough for her. I mean, that's her
That
mother.
was her mom, yeah.
So it's been brought up, I think, a couple times, but it's hard sometimes to bring it up
Yeah.
because it's not the easiest thing to talk about. Like I know for Mother's Day, she went out with my mom and her and my aunts, because I mean that would have been a tough day for her, Mother's Day, without having her mother there. But I think trying to talk about it is tough, but I think it can be really good. I mean, I think I like talking about it with some of my siblings because it's easier to talk about it with my siblings because I know for my mother, it was really tough because my mother would go to see her a lot because she was a nurse, so she'd help her with like patches or whatever she would have that she would need help with.
Yeah.
So I know for my mom, it was really tough. So sometimes talking about it with my mom is harder. So talking about it with my siblings is the better way to go sometimes.
Do you talk to your friends about it? Because I'm sure they've had grandparents. Some have lost their grandparents or.
Yeah, I have a little bit on Instagram. I made a post to show some of my friends how awesome she was.
Yeah.
There's a really good one.
That's so sweet.
There's a really good one that she's wearing like a unicorn hat from one of my younger cousins' birthdays. She's like 100 years old or 99 at that time, wearing like a unicorn hat that goes like around her chin that she's wearing. And I posted that, and some of my friends would see it. So I talked to some of my friends about that. And,
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But how lucky are you that you had your great-grandmother in your life for 17 years?
Yeah, I know a lot of people, they don't have
wonderful.
that chance. So it's obviously awesome. Some people don't have that chance with their grandparents. And I had that with my great-grandmother, which was awesome.
Yeah. Is your grandmother just as awesome as she is? I'm sure.
Yeah, my grandmother's fun, yeah.
Yeah.
She likes to...
Does she use off-color words that your parents aren't supposed to know about too?
I'm sure she does, yeah. Every once in a while.
Yeah, we all do, but don't tell my daughter, she'll get mad at me.
That's what grandparents are for.
Of course
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely.
And what about you, Milo? Same thing? How do you deal with grief? Like,
Well, the biggest grief in my life is I lost both my grandmother and grandfather.
within 6 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandmother in November 2022 and my grandfather in March of 2023. And for me, I think it was a lot different than, what Jimmy went through because my grandparents, they were in Germany.
Yeah.
And so I only saw them like in summers and whatnot throughout my life. So they weren't there all the time. So it was a very kind of strange grief for me because it was like, that was the first time I really like lost people that important. I had lost, in 2017, my great uncle, but again, he was somebody like we visited and he was bedridden for a long time. He suffered from a stroke like quite a number of years. And so, he wasn't in the best condition. So he wasn't somebody I could really have conversations with and whatnot. So my first like extreme like moment of losing somebody was them. And so it was very kind of a weird experience for me because it was like more of like a surreal experience. Like I can't believe, they're not there. And like, that's our vacation is to go to Germany and visit them. And so it's like a weird thing. Like we're not going this summer because, we want to, a lot of the aspect is like money wise is like, we had to save up money to go and whatnot. So we're like, well, now that they've passed, we want to save the money and not go. So it's a weird thing that my family over there is, has gotten smaller and it's
So this would be like the first or second year that you haven't gone there. So it's
going
to be a weird summer.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird summer. So the past few summers we've gone every year, but before that, like when I was younger, we would only go every 2 years because of like the money aspect to save that money because So yeah, but it's just kind of a weird thing where it's like we're not really sure. Like we don't have like the obligation as much to go there because before it was because they're aging and we wanted to visit them. So it's a weird thing for me, thinking about that that they're not going to be there when we visit them. And just recently, their house, which my grandfather built, was just got put on the market, and so that's like it's just
that's
a weird.
weird.
It's
Yeah.
such a weird thing because that house has always been like I love that house so much. It's
Yeah.
such a beautiful house, and so it's just weird that it's no
not
longer
gonna be
longer
there.
ours. I can't stay
Yeah.
there anymore. It's been a weird experience for me, and it's been.
I mean, at a young age, well, obviously a lot younger than I am, twist my word. So, I mean, I don't know if being at my age, I would feel this. I probably would. I mean, when my grandparents passed away and their house was no longer there, which I loved going to every weekend, I think back and I'm like, did I have that feeling too? I mean, I still have fond memories of it, but I probably felt the same way, but just don't remember. I was so young.
Yeah.
But do you talk to your brother about that? Not going there anymore, or your parents?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I guess we don't really necessarily bring up their death a lot, but
Well, I mean, even going to Germany, visiting there.
Yeah, we definitely bring it up a lot.
Yeah.
Like we always talk about, my brother because he's in college right now. Next year he's gonna be studying abroad,
Yeah.
and so he's gonna study abroad in Germany.
Oh.
And so,
Wow.
so we're talking about like, oh, we should go, visit him because then
Yeah.
that's a reason to go there and visit. And he's gonna be in like a different part of the country than my grandparents are from, and so that's a place that I've never really. He's gonna be in Berlin.
Yeah.
And so my grandparents are from like the opposite side of the country, so,
So-
we've never really been over there.
Yeah.
So it's like we definitely talked about like that aspect of going to Germany in like different contexts and whatnot, and
Yeah.
so it's just kind of a strange experience, because that's always been where we go,
Yeah.
the people we visit, that area, and all that. So it's just kind of a weird thing to think
Yeah.
that things are going to be very different.
But it'll be a new experience and a
Yes.
new memory for you to build on. Same with you. I mean, you're making memories with your grandmother now.
Yeah.
And of course you have those memories of your great grandmother, which sound like they were amazing. Tip a little wine. Did she sneak you a little red wine?
We might have had bottles of red
We're
wine on the
Italian,
table.
we always-
at the funeral, there might have been some bottles on the
Yeah.
ground as a
Homemade, right?
memento.
Homemade, right?
I wish that would be.
Yeah, that was thing.
Do you
So-
find?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, you
that's
go.
okay. Do you find that the grief kind of helps a little bit, not so much to talk about the loss of them, but what you remember of them, and like, remember when we did this with grandma, or remember when we did that? I find for me that helps. I mean, it never goes away.
Right.
But to think of like, oh, remember when we went on that trip, or, that time that, grandma fell down the stairs because there was the red wine. We won't mention that I was Irish growing up.
I definitely think so, because a lot of my life, my grandfather, he was incredibly smart, and I know he was like he's a very smart person, but he was also very grumpy, and we would always joke about him. He would always be kind of like rude or whatnot, or if he's had like a project going, because he was like an engineer, and so he would always be like working on something or fixing things in the house and things like that. And so sometimes if he would ask you for help and you do it wrong, he was like, never mind, I'll just do it myself.
God, it sounds like my grandfather.
That was a lot of like experience with him, and at the same time there was a lot of like very sweet moments, and obviously I love him a lot, and
Yeah.
But since their passing, when we kind of talk about like memories of them, or we look through old photos and whatnot, we kind of like convened about that. He was kind of like that, but we joked that he was a very honest person, and that's why people thought of him as rude.
Yeah.
If you were a certain way and he didn't like it, he would tell you that that's what's wrong with you or something
My
like that.
grandfather was like that.
So
yeah.
he definitely was a very grumpy person, but at the same time he was a very like forward person with what
Yeah.
he thought. And
He
so
told the truth.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
basically, like, I guess like what you were asking about is that since that passing, I've kind of had like kind of a re-understanding, because I've always like kind of thought, I never thought of him as like an insanely rude person or anything like that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but he kind of had that quality of like, I'll do it myself, or that's not a good enough job, I'll just do it. But that kind of re-understanding of like, talking about, after their passing and remembering them in different ways, that's kind of something we've talked about as a family, is like that kind of redefining of, who he was.
Who
And
he was
I
as
think
a-
that's
yeah,
a really
yeah.
special thing.
Yeah,
I think that's a great way to put it,
Yeah.
redefining who
Exactly.
he was for you.
See, he's wicked smart, right?
Yeah, wicked.
Wicked smart. I love it.
Wicked.
I sat with them out there in the lobby, and I'm like, these kids are pretty cool. I can learn a lot from them.
I
mean-
think that is the most important part of grieving. I think is remembering like those fond memories. I think that I think that helps the most talking about it. At the wake, we had like a moving video.
Oh, yeah.
And it would cycle through pictures or videos of her. And looking at those, I mean, it was really special to like look at those.
Did you laugh at a lot of them?
Yes.
See?
And we, in my house, will always remember one of the best memories, I think, is my great-grandmother. She told my mom to F off because she told my mom that because my mom wanted to get her a wheelchair.
Oh, she wasn't having it.
My great-grandmother didn't want other people to think that she was old, so she refused to sit in a wheelchair at like 100 years old. Yeah,
I don't blame her. I would have said that
She was
too.
really against it. She was like, no way.
And she was mobile and everything?
She used a walker, yeah.
Yeah.
And we usually, like coming into the house or going upstairs, we'd have 2 people on the opposite side of
Yeah,
the
of
walker
course,
helping her
yeah.
in, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, she was really
So she
against the
threw that
wheelchair.
word around a lot. Good
Yeah.
for her. A high five. Good for her. Love that woman.
Absolutely.
Didn't even know about love her to death. So did anything in the 3 years that you've been in high school, I know there's been horrible things that have happened in Methuen, you know, in some we want to talk about just to get it out in the open to help each other talk about it. But have there been incidents in school where you need to talk to each other to get over the trauma of whatever it was? They
don't
just stay
know.
away from trouble. That's it. Not that it's trouble, but I mean, you know,
I mean, I think it
what goes on in school that bothers you the most?
bothers me the most.
Vaping. Is vaping a big thing in school?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It's gross, right?
It kind of, and that kind of bothers me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, at the same time, to me, it's like, it's not really my problem. I mean, you can do what you want.
Yeah,
but,
right. That's
but
how I
like,
feel.
The thing is, like, I don't really want to go in the school bathrooms because I don't want to have to deal with, you
Smell
know.
it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the annoyance for me. Like, we're at one point, it's kind of like, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't, you know, if it doesn't affect me. But then it kind of does affect me because if I go to the
'Cause you have
bathroom,
to-
I get, you know, choked
Right.
out by a cloud of
Blast
smoke.
by it.
Yeah.
So.
So another question. So I had Dr. Kwong on here, and she had said, I had asked what the biggest problem in the school was today, and I didn't know that this was the thing, but cell phone use and sexting. I don't think you guys are involved in it. You don't seem like the type, but she said that some kids would, girls would literally send pictures of themselves to boys, and then that gets passed around. Of course, that boy now has child pornography in their possession and things like that. I was dumbfounded when she said that. We didn't have cell phones in school. You know, I think life was so much easier when we were kids, but is that really a big, not that I don't deny what she said, but that's really a big thing in school?
You know, I've heard
Not
about
involved,
it.
yeah,
you
I
know,
heard about it.
Yeah, I've heard people saying stuff like that, like, oh, this got out
Yeah,
or whatever. But
yeah.
I never really thought of it as like that massive a problem. Like
Right.
every once in a while somebody will say something like, oh, did you hear about this happening or whatever? But I never really.
You don't know if it's idle gossip or if it really
Yeah.
happened, right? Yeah, you don't seem like
You don't
to
really know
get
if
into
it's
trouble.
real or if people are just
Saying
trying to
stuff to
gossip
get someone
around,
in
yeah.
trouble. And I mean, when I was in school, they would, oh, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. Like stupid rumors go around,
Yeah.
and then they look at that person and go, I'm not going near you because that happened, and it never happened. It was just a rumor. Things like that still go on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
What are the things, you ask a question
What do
while
you-
I think.
From a teenage perspective, I remember as a kid, there was always the bullying class.
Yeah.
And you would tell somebody about it, and they would go, oh, yeah, stand up to them, or any
Yeah.
number of those things. And bullying has really come to the forefront now because it is such a problem. But do you think adults underreact to it or overreact to it?
Well, I guess I'll say the first thing is there's not like bullying anymore, like the stereotypical bullying that like might have happened like a couple of years ago or like a couple decades ago, where it's like more, push someone up against the locker. I don't think that's really. I think like you said, the cell phones. I think like the cyberbullying part of it, where
Yes.
people will post stuff online, say stuff online, private message somebody about someone else. I think that's more what bullying is now, I think.
It's more verbal via
Yes.
cell phones
Yeah.
and
I
stuff
think
like
it's
that.
definitely more like verbal than it is like a physical kind of like pushing of somebody, you know, like you'll.
Like knocking books out of their hands.
Yeah,
or
not
something.
necessarily that, but yeah.
No, but like back when we were in
Yeah.
school, that's what.
But now it's more
bullying was.
of like a verbal attack rather than like a physical.
Well, because people will do it like cyberbullying when they're behind the screen, and it's less, you know, it's harder
Real
harder to
heroes.
get someone in trouble because it's outside of
Yeah.
school,
Oh.
so the school can't really get into it. Something
So
like
is
that,
it mean girls, but not necessarily girls?
I
Like
guess
a Mean
that's
Girl Club.
yeah. I think it's a good way to put it.
Are there still cliques?
I would say, yeah. I mean,
I think from my perspective at least, I think that I see a lot more like integration
Yes,
than
yes.
what my experience of like, you know, the cliques of like the past might be from movies or whatnot, you know, those kind of like stereotypes and whatnot kind of persist in movies and things like that. And so the portrayals of those in that type of scene, I think it's a little different. Like those groups still exist, but I think there's a lot more like intertwining of those
different kinds of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, now-
which it should be.
yeah, so those like groups and cliques definitely exist, but I think there's a lot more kind of like acceptance between them than
Than they used to
maybe
be.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were in school, we had the jocks, we had the cheerleaders, the band people, the nerds, whatever. I don't know who.
I kind of
I
want
don't
to
know where
follow.
I fit in.
I kind of want to follow up on what Milo said and almost twist it a little bit. Do you feel people defend each other more than they might have
Great
25
question.
years ago? I realize you were not here 25 years ago, but when you look at the movies and you see, you know, the kid that sits in the back of the class and watches everybody else get picked on, is there still that kid that does that, or do you think more people say, you know, no, don't make fun of him?
I would say, I think, well, like you said, the quiet kid, I think that's what's targeted more because people know they're not going to say anything. And I think some people also won't defend that quiet kid because then they don't want it redirected at them instead. So I think that's, you know, you don't want to jump in at somebody else because now you're the target, I guess.
What, that's, I don't know. Me being me, I would stick up for the quiet kid. Well, you know me, I would stick up for the
You'd be
quiet
sitting on the quiet kid's desk making sure nobody bothered him.
I just can't. I just can't. That still happens, huh?
Yeah,
Like
it
the quiet
definitely does.
kid. Would
Yeah.
you stick up for that quiet kid? No, because you don't want it backed on you.
Yeah, you know, it's like someone like if I were to go home and think about it, I would feel like insanely bad for not having done something.
Yeah.
But in the moment, I would like be shied too away from actually
Yeah.
doing something. You know,
You as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to do something, but then there's also that thought of you don't want it redirected to you. Because, I
Yeah.
mean, you
What
all,
do they say? Do they just like go by and like nudge him or something, or
I don't
call
even,
him stupid names?
I don't even know
Yeah.
how to describe it. It's almost like it's more passive aggressive behavior
Yeah.
than like front forward, like clearly bullying
Or, like
someone.
nice shirt, things like that.
Yeah, I think that's it's like not really front forward bullying. Like it's clearly they're bullying them, but they know they're bullying them. But the quiet kid, like they're doing it in a way that it's not like easy to see.
Yeah.
You know, it's
And how do you think
very
that
passive aggressive.
quiet kid feels? Do you think he'd retaliate, or is he just a good kid and just takes it for what it is?
I think a lot of times they let it like roll off their back because it's not a big issue for them.
Yeah.
I mean, they know that like
Because they know they're
they know
better
who they
than
are.
that.
They know they're better. Yeah, exactly. That's a
they're
good way to
better
put
than
it.
that.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. So, and we'll be back in 5. Whatever. See you soon. Thank you.
Do you have an idea for a podcast? Would you like to produce it in a state-of-the-art studio? Well, we have that at Methuen Community Studios on 20 Aegean Drive in Methuen. All you need to do is sign up as a member and pay the membership fee. Take training on our Methuen network setup. Propose and have a community podcast approved. Book and complete your program. Have your podcast uploaded to the Methuen network, and then publicize it. Let people know it's there. So if you have a podcast idea and want to produce it in a state-of-the-art studio, please contact us at Methuen Community Studios, 978-689-8627, or email us at info@methuentv.org. We'd love to hear from you.
And welcome back to From Stigma to Strength, keeping you and your mind well. And again with my co-host, Michelle Houle. And Michelle has a couple of questions for the boys.
I was just kind of wondering, like, when I think back to my teenage years, which was just yesterday, like Nancy said.
Sure.
I remember often I would say things to people and like try to tell them how I felt, and they would kind of almost push it under the rug, like, well, you're a teenager, you'll outgrow that.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but how do you find people do that as adults? And what do you do in response?
I was going to say, I think more recently, definitely than like a couple of years ago, I think the acknowledgement of like anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, I think stuff like that is taken more seriously now than a couple of years ago. It's not just pushed off as much. I think there's more like outreach for that, which I think is obviously, I mean, that's a great thing for people that need stuff like that. Just having some type of support is important, whether it's family, friends, counselor, teacher, any neighbor, any type of like support, I think is good for that.
These kids need their own show. Honest to God.
That's okay. We could
You're
we
amazing.
could get that going.
And what about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what he's saying. I feel like now it's a lot more like accepted. Obviously, you know, we have things like this show trying to bring more awareness and things like that. And I think in my view, one of the biggest issues is not necessarily that people aren't open to it, is that people don't really know that people are, or they don't really want to be open about it. You know, it's more like, it's not so much that that somebody you tell about it will not care. It's more that you feel like you don't want to, or something like that. You know, you know what I mean?
Like you don't want to share?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the stigma.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the stigma.
It's like you think that people might not accept, even though there's a lot more people nowadays that will be accepting of that. And,
Right.
and
Oh, for
understanding.
sure. When we, like, if you told someone you had like a mental health issue or you were depressed, and well, I never had that feeling I wanted to, you know, commit suicide or anything, but we all get depressed. I mean, it's a part of life. But if you told someone, you know, they would want to put you away in a hospital because you were depressed. Well, you get over depression by talking to people, doing things like that. I mean, I'm sure you guys get depressed. There are moments where I have too much homework. So to me now, as a grown-up, thinking back on homework, we all stressed out about homework, but obviously you were depressed about your grandparents passing, and other things. What other things would make you depressed, and how would you get through that? Well, talking to your sister, talking to your siblings, your parents. You talk to your parents a lot about different things, right? How you feel, emotions.
Yeah, they're very, very, very open people. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
yours as well.
I think that support is, I think that's the most important part of any issue that we've talked about today. Grief, depression, anxiety, anything like that. I think having a good support is important. Family, friends, anything like that, which, I mean, my parents are good to talk to. My older sister I've always been close to, and it's easy to talk to her about like tougher stuff.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
You were going to say something?
I was just going to say, maybe this was a girl thing, for a lack of better term, but I know my mother and I would go head to head over some of the stupidest things, and my father would just kind of like back out of the room because it was safer.
For him.
Yeah. But how do you handle if your parents are your support system? And I'm not saying your parents are problems, and I'm not saying my mother was a problem. It was probably me. But how do you handle if your problem is your support system? Where else can you go beyond that?
Kids in school, guidance counselors.
For me,
You
sorry.
can go for it.
For me, like, that's definitely one of the things that I mostly talk about with my brother in terms of like mental health stuff, is because like usually like if we get in a fight with our parents, it'll usually like like us two versus them, even though me and my brother would always like fight, you know, it always end up kind of being like that. Or even when it wasn't, you know, my brother would be like you know, going crazy about like his perspective, like, oh, this and that or whatever. I'd do the same thing if it was like me getting in trouble, and so I feel like me and my brother, you know, we're kind of like each other's like outlets for when we were having arguments with our parents and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. And the same thing with you?
Yeah, I feel like when you argue with your parents, you usually fall back to your siblings, and then they'll like be on your side almost all the time. I definitely feel that with like my younger sister or my older brother, like, you know, it'd be like us against my parents sometimes if they were doing something that we were kind of against. It'd be like, oh, we gotta the three of us have to go against them.
Oh, the story of the ages. It's always how it was, you know?
Yeah.
The kids against the parents. Let's take charge.
And it's
you
never
know?
anything bad.
No,
It's
no, it's something
you guys
stupid.
are almost 18 now.
Yeah.
So you're you want to outgrow the curfews. You want to outgrow the allowances, all of those things. So how do you, as a teen, I know how I did it, and that was where the screaming came from, but how do you as a teen get your parents to respect you for that and realize that it's a part of you growing up and that it can then lead to all of these other problems?
For me, at least, I don't really have issues with that. Most of like fighting with my parents was like when I was younger. Like now, we have like some small arguments or whatnot, but it's I feel like it's nowhere near as like full blown, you know,
Yeah, yelling, screaming.
yelling and screaming as it might have been when I was younger. But I don't really have that many issues with that because, like I said, my parents are very open people. Like I don't really have curfews or whatnot. They're like, if you're gonna be out late, you know, just give a call and like. Just like sometimes if I'm out late, my dad will text me, hey, when are you gonna be home? Like, oh, maybe half an hour. He's like, no problem, you know. My dad's a night owl, so he's usually up anyways. Yeah. But yeah, I don't really have that like many issues because my parents are very like open of like letting me like, you know, go out with friends like when I want to and whatnot, you know. So there's not really that kind of conflict there that a lot of people might see with like parents who are more restrictive of like when and where they can do things.
I'm gonna interrupt you for 1 second, Jim. So do you think maybe what I was going through 30 years ago with my mom, I'm probably about the same age as your mom. I'm probably older. So do you think maybe there's been a growth in, like, maybe your parents aren't reacting the way mine did
Communication, like the
because,
way
you know, they lived it?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something like that. And I feel like in school, when I look around like my friends and whatnot, it's like a lot of their parents are pretty open to letting them do stuff, and then it's usually like, you know, only a handful of people, their parents will kind of be like, no, like, you know, that's too late, it's too late or whatnot. And so I feel like there is a big shift towards a lot more like, you know, looseness in terms of letting kids go off and do that type of thing. I definitely think there has been a shift, you know, at least recently, in that kind of parenting.
Maybe it's because kids are more trusting nowadays.
Maybe.
Like, are there things you wouldn't tell your parents? Yeah, look at this. Look at him.
That you want to tell us on TV that they're never going to watch the
They're
show?
never going to see it.
There's
What
some-
would you never tell your parents?
There's not a whole lot that I would never tell them. There's like stuff where like
I don't trust him.
there's stuff where like I don't really feel the need to tell them about.
Yeah.
But
On a
like-
need-to-know basis.
Yeah, exactly. But like
Like
there's
what?
nothing really I wouldn't. I don't. Well, just like if I have an argument with my friends or someone like that.
Oh, they
like,
don't need to know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like something they don't really know. But if they notice I'm like kind of like, oh, like you know, what's with you
Yeah.
today or something like that, I'd say like, oh, you know, we have an argument or whatever. But like that's not really something I would just tell them because
Yeah,
it was
blurt
happening.
out.
If they asked about it, I would be perfectly open, but I don't really feel
Yeah.
the need to tell them
Yeah,
some
that's
stuff.
that's
but
nothing. Yeah,
yeah.
that's not a burden they need to.
Yeah.
It's your burden, and you'll
Exactly.
fix it.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah,
I mean,
there
I
you
guess.
go. There we go.
I mean, I guess like some stuff that bothers me sometimes, I might not want to tell them. Like I don't
Wait a minute,
want to
hold on.
cause them
Mom
worry.
and Dad, block your ears. Go ahead.
Like if something happens that something like that kind of like messed up my day, I don't want to worry them. Like I don't want to, you know, put more of a burden on their back that like of something that they can't, you know, something that they can't fix.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give them like that unnecessary burden to have.
So why would you carry the burden by yourself if, you know what I mean, getting it off your shoulders might help? Like even if you told a guidance counselor or a friend or something.
I just feel like that's always kind of how I've been. I think I'm like a more stubborn person. I mean, I like to handle my own stuff a lot of the time.
Oh, so I'm interviewing my husband. He never tells me what bothers him. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of
You
how
have
I
my
am.
husband
I'm
on.
very stubborn, I
Yeah.
think.
Why?
So- I mean, I don't know. I just
Do you think you can fix your problem by yourself, or?
I think so, but there's always something that you wouldn't want to tell like someone personally because sometimes you don't want to hear
Well,
their
it's
opinion.
your personal business.
Sometimes
too.
you don't want to hear like a family or friend's opinion.
You
And
know
I've
you're
just-
wrong and you don't want
Yeah.
somebody else
Yeah.
to tell you.
That's
You
part
told
of
you
it.
so.
Been there.
And I've never really
Yeah,
been the
words I
person.
told you so. Yeah.
I've never really been the person to like talk to the counselor. I mean, I think that's something that could help me, but I've never really thought about
Is
doing
there a
that.
stigma related to talking to a counselor?
I think there is. I think there's less of one now, but I think sometimes people will like view if you have to go talk to your counselor, and then people know that you're like going through something. I don't want people to really know like that I'm going through something.
But it's
as
going to
much.
help you. So, see, there's that stigma of,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, of you could be going to see a counselor for something else. You know, maybe your friend. If you had a friend, either of you had a friend that, excuse me, you knew was going through some type of depression or anxiety, and they just can't shake it, would you go talk to an adult about it? To
That's a great question.
Say, can you? Milo's having an issue. Milo's my friend. He's my good friend. I've been trying to help him, but it doesn't seem to be, my words don't seem to be helping Milo. Do you think you could talk to Milo? Would you do that to help your friend? Or you as well?
Well, talk to the person or talk to like,
Well,
an
you've
adult
talked to
about it?
him, tried to help him, whatever the situation is that he's going through, whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever, over anything. A small thing could be a big thing to a person, you know? Like if you get an A minus, that would bother you. That would bother you, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would bother you a lot. So, and you're gonna feel some type of way about it, which you're probably always gonna get A pluses, but you know, it's never gonna happen to you, but what if? I mean, you would feel some type of way and you would say, look, Jimmy, I'm having this problem, I got an A minus, you know, I feel really crappy about it, you know, but this like lingered for a week. This is a scenario, it's never gonna happen. But you don't seem to bring him out of this funk of that. Would you go tell someone that you think may be able to help him? And, you know,
I think there's like how severe I think the issue is.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think the right thing to do would be to tell somebody.
yeah.
But then I know, I think that's just kind of my stubborn personality. I think if somebody else had talked to someone else for me, I think personally I'm
Would you
not
get
sure if I
pissed?
would like that. Yeah.
You would get
I think that's
angry?
my stubborn personality, but I think
Would you feel the same?
Yeah, like I think that if there was somebody going through something and I couldn't really get to them, the first thing I might do is like I might talk to my parents about it. Like
How can you help him?
Even if they don't know like who that friend is or whatnot, I might
Yeah.
kind of bring it up like, oh, you know, my friend so and so is like really down, but I can't really do anything. Maybe they'll give me some advice on like, you know, something I could try to say or something like that might help the
Yeah.
situation. Or so like
That's terrific.
you know,
Yeah.
like they'll probably tell me, oh, ask them to hang out, you know, or something like that, just
Yeah.
to try and do something with them. But in terms of like somebody who would, like a guidance counselor that would go and talk to them, like Jimmy was saying, that's definitely like the thing that you should do and the thing that they might need. But a lot of people, especially because of like the stigma around help like that, they might not want to. And so I don't want to be the person that almost forced them into that situation that
right.
they're
I
not
get
comfortable
it.
with,
Yeah,
or
I
that
get it.
they
So,
don't.
Yeah.
so that was my
Right.
thinking, but then you hear those stories of like oh, somebody committed suicide, and it's like, oh, as their friend, I wish I would have said something.
Yeah, there's
so
that
then you hear
coulda,
those
shoulda, woulda.
stories.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I was
Yeah.
thinking
That's
with
the
it.
That's
tough
where I was
part.
You know,
going, yeah.
suicide, school shootings.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are
Because then you think like, oh, if I had said something to someone, maybe it could have been prevented.
I could have helped
And then you
him.
have that guilt, I
would've-
think,
yeah,
that builds up.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that goes on. That happens. I mean, you know, there's that kid that, you know, the quiet kid that, you know, people pick on him. You don't know what's going on in his head. You know, just be nice. I mean, you know, I don't think you guys don't do that, do you? No.
Do you feel like people in today's society have decided already that teenagers have mental health problems and we're going to shove them on you? I know that sounds backwards considering
I know
we're
exactly
talking
what you're
about
saying,
it.
yeah.
But I feel like, you know, we're saying, you know, this kid is quiet. Oh, it must be a suicide watch. You know,
Yeah.
this kid did that. He must be being bullied. Do you think adults have a tendency to just assume for you that you're having problems or your age group is having problems?
I kind of agree to that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think there's a genuine depression that you could be in where you're in a state of sadness over a long period of time over something. But then there's versus just being sad, which is, you know, just the emotion, you're sad about something. So I think there's I think sometimes people are early to call, you see someone sad about something, oh, they're depressed, which isn't necessarily the case. Oh, somebody's nervous about something, oh, they have anxiety, which, I mean, sometimes can be the case, but I think sometimes it can be called a little early. But I mean, I think it's tough to tell what the difference is sometimes.
I think that question was perfect. If someone just met him, they would think that he was shy, he was, an introvert, which he's not. He's always smiling, this one. But what do you want people to know about you? What type of person you are, that you're quiet, but not really? You speak your mind, you speak your piece.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes I do start off as shy, but then I can open up easily if I start talking to the person. But I think sometimes I do start off as shy and I present that, which I think sometimes that is how I'm feeling, but I mean,
when I approached you guys at the senior center, you didn't hesitate to want to talk about your grandmother and grief and how you deal with it. Same with you. You weren't shy about, wanting to come and talk. You say, I'll do it. So why did you want to do it?
I just wanted to do it so it just seemed like kind of fun, and being able to talk about, things that are going on. You needed, high school perspective, and I just think it's a fun opportunity to come here and be speaking on TV, and so I kind of dragged Jimmy into it a little bit. Like Jimmy was talking about, he can be shy, and I agree with that, Like when I was telling him, I was like, we should do it. He's like, yeah, it'd be fun, but I don't know if I'd really want to speak to the cameras or whatnot. And look at him now.
You're speaking too much. You're not talking to the camera. They're just directed on you. You just don't know it because you're right up in that monitor right there. I only want it on because I'm like, I want to make sure, whatever. But that's just a girl thing. But you guys were really open, honest. I appreciate your candor and everything you said. I used a big word, candor.
You did.
See, I can talk smart too. So what else do you want to add? Do you want to add anything? Ask them anything?
I'm kind of wondering, peer pressure. Oh. That's one of the big things. It's really been the base of everything we've talked about is peer pressure. How do teenagers today handle it in terms of, you have a lot more accessibility. So how do you, I'm trying to form my words.
How do you deal with peer? There you go. You can't say it and I can't say it.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, you even said that you thought you would feel a little funny going to somebody and saying, hey, I'm having this problem, or Milo's having this problem. How do we get past that stigma? How do teens get past that stigma so that you can feel open to asking for help?
I think for me, one of the things I always talk about is that a lot of times people take a lot of things in life a little too seriously. I think, and by that I mean they'll, a lot of times, for example, in terms of homework, in one of my classes, it's a pretty intensive class and people will always be stressing about the homework, but the teacher, always says if you spend too long on it, don't just sit there for hours and hours and hours. But those kids, a lot of my friends, they'll be like, but I have to get it done or whatnot. And so one of the things the due date is tomorrow, even though the teacher said, don't worry about it too much if you're struggling to solve the problems or whatnot. And so in terms of things like that, I think sometimes people take it too seriously. And I think a lot of times people need to realize that things can be okay without being insanely to the point and like that. And I mean, in terms of talking to an adult or whatnot, people getting hurt by somebody kind of forcing them in that position. We're talking about, we didn't want to tell a guidance counselor that this person's having an issue because we didn't want to put that onto that person, if they're not comfortable with that. And for that person, it might be kind of realizing that it's not that serious just to talk to somebody. If you don't really want to open up, you kind of don't have to if you don't want to, they kind of have a choice in how much they tell that guidance counselor, and then it's not that serious that guidance counselor was sent to them. And for the person who's telling that guidance counselor, it shouldn't be that big of a deal just for that guidance counselor to check in on them, It's not, it doesn't, not everything has to be a big ordeal. And so I think that might be one thing that will kind of lead to that is, people just realizing that it's okay for things to not always be, as dramatic or as
Yeah.
big of a thing as they think it might be.
Did you want to add anything to
I
that?
was gonna say, I think the age-old answer to peer pressure is, don't care what other people think. But sometimes, that's harder to do than it's harder to do than just saying that. But I think, just trying to ignore what other people might think is really the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's harder.
Just don't follow the leader
Yeah.
unless it's a good leader leading you into something good.
So where are your plans from
Yeah.
here? Not this like physically getting in the car going home, but like senior year's coming up.
Yep.
Where do you see yourself going to avoid the stress of
Well,
planning ahead?
with the school year coming to an end, I have a lot of stuff planned for the summer. I'm doing a 2 weeks at WPI, Worcester Polytechnic, which I'm pretty excited about, kind of seeing stuff like that. So that'll be a cool experience. But I kind of, for the summer, I plan on trying to allot, time to not really do anything intensive,
Yeah.
relax,
Yeah.
An intensive school year. Now it's slowing down. So I really want to try and make sure that I don't overwork myself,
Chill for the summer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I want to be able to relax, and that's a pretty important mental health thing is knowing when to kind of, give yourself some time and some space.
What about you?
I think that's definitely important, having your own time to relax. But also, hopefully, we'll be going on checking out some colleges, which in itself is a stressful thing. Picking the college. It's a tough decision.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna start trying to narrow that down a little bit to where I want to go.
So I can think of something fun you can do over the summer is come and volunteer here. I think you guys would be amazing doing volunteer work here. You can come for an hour a week, 2 hours a week, produce a show, direct a show, be in a show, with
I'd
some of
definitely be
your
interested in
peers.
that, yeah.
She teaches the hosting classes. She teaches all the classes, so you'd want to see Michelle. I think you guys would be perfect.
We would
do a
love to
show.
have you and bring lots of friends your age.
Yeah.
I definitely will. I definitely
Yeah,
will
sounds
ask some
fun.
friends, if
Yeah.
they
Do
want
you
to
guys
tag
have your
along.
licenses yet?
No.
I do.
You do? No, don't rush it. It's no big deal.
It's no
driving's,
thrill.
Driving's no thrill, believe
Yeah.
me, especially when you have to go to the store and get mom this, get mom that. Believe me, I pulled that on my kids. They learned. Yeah, no, Ma, we're not. We have things to do. But listen, I want to thank you, Milo, you, Jimmy, so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And any closing words from you?
Just again,
were amazing.
like Nancy said, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having
And
us.
I hope we will
Absolutely.
see you here.
Yeah.
But if not, I wish you both the best in the future.
Thank you.
And should you ever need an adult, I'm good at listening, but talking's a little better. So
Yeah. They talk better. I'm not talking to them anymore. I'll see you down at the senior center. Michelle, when's the last day of the grandparent program?
Is next Wednesday the last one? I was kind of
Next
thinking
Wednesday?
about that.
Yeah, maybe
It
I'll go
might
down
be.
and say bye to you guys. Thank you again very much. I appreciate it. And that is all from Stigma to Strength, keeping you and your mind well. And remember, it is okay not to be okay. Have a great day, everyone.